My name is Bob Thompson. I'm a 25-year-old working at a small to medium-sized firm. Every day it's just back and forth between home and the office, but I always make it a point to stop by a certain place. It's a park near the subway station, and there's always someone sitting on a bench there. "Good evening." "Hut, you are here again." The reply came from a young woman. But with her long blonde hair, she looked like a typical rebel at first glance. Well, she really is a rebel, apparently the leader of some female gang. Why I am talking to her in the park, let's go back a few months. One day, I decided to take a shortcut through that park. It was dark, thought it was deserted, but there she was, Catherine, sitting on the bench. She had what looked like a bruise from a fight on her cheek. Concerned, I blurted out, "Are you okay?" But she snapped, "Mind your own business," and ran off. That was our first encounter. To be honest, it was pretty awful, but for some reason, I couldn't get Catherine out of my mind. It struck me because she reminded me so much of my younger self. Not that I was a rebel, but I had my wild days too. When my parents divorced, I was placed in an orphanage and grew up there for the rest of my childhood. No one ever visited, and I didn't get along with the other kids. Maybe it was childish pride, but I believed asking for help was admitting defeat and showing tears was for the weak. That mindset didn't change even after I left the facility at 18 and got my current job. Entering the working world without a clue and too proud to ask for advice. Whenever I messed up, I just apologize and try to fix things on my own, usually making things worse. The president, seeing all this, became concerned. The company I work for isn't big, so everyone's pretty close, including the president. When he invited me out for a drink, I thought for sure I was in for a lecture. But the president praised me, saying I was working really hard. "If you don't know something, just ask those around you. If you need help, just ask for it. Relying on someone doesn't mean you're weak," he told me. He really understood how I felt. Relying on someone isn't a sign of weakness. I totally agreed with him, but at that time, it hit me like a bolt out of the blue. His words truly saved me. From then on, I stopped bottling up everything, and my mistakes significantly decreased. Catherine, she really reminded me of myself back then. So, I began visiting the park often, looking for her. I just wanted to talk with her for my own satisfaction. She frequented the park, and nearly 10 times, I'd approach her and she'd run away. Every time I saw her, she had some kind of injury, so I started carrying band-aids, hoping to give her one someday. On our 11th encounter, maybe she gave up or something, but she finally said, "You're so persistent," and we started talking. At this point, I was pretty stubborn myself, and my initial goal had shifted. I just wanted a proper introduction. So, when I got the chance to talk to her, I started with my story. I told her I was worried about her injuries and that it was unsafe for her to be alone. She responded with a scowl, "You're not my dad, are you?" But she gratefully accepted the band-aid I offered. I could tell that despite her tough exterior, deep down, she was a sincere person. Maybe it was because I gave her a band-aid, or she just wanted more, but she began coming to the park daily. We chatted for about 10 minutes, and I learned that her name was Catherine. She was 20, the leader of a girls' gang, and she'd get into fights with her crew daily. One of the crew members, she's got quite the fiery temper, and she's like, "The card boss is too soft, so I'm gonna set things straight." And she started a fight with me. When I fought back hard, next thing I know, none of my crew was on my side anymore. She said, looking down sadly. I took over as the leader of the group, trying to work for everyone's good, but seems like folks aren't too happy with the way I do things. I might get kicked out soon. At that moment, her face looked so young and full of worry. I've never been involved with gang stuff, but I do know the loneliness of being isolated in a group. but I also knew that giving advice might just earn me a "who do you think you're, my parent?" All I can say is, being in charge is tough, was all I could muster in her support. So, one day, after this routine of meeting up at the park and talking for about 10 minutes had been going on for a while, a significant incident that would change our relationship occurred. As always, I went to the park, carrying some band-aids. But when I got there, Catherine was curled up, sitting on the bench with her legs pulled up, face buried in her arms. I rushed to her side. "Catherine, what happened?" I exclaimed. When she looked up, tears were streaming down her face. Oh, Bob." The moment she saw my face, she hugged me tightly. I was taken aback, but tried to comfort her by patting her back. After a while, her crying slowed down, punctuated by occasional hiccups. On closer look, her cheek was swollen, and her injuries seemed worse than usual. Seeing my concern, she started to cry again. I lost a fight. They kicked me out. Turns out, she finally lost to that fiery member and was dethroned as the gang's boss. Over time, it seems the majority had sided with this new leader, and no one was there to support Catherine. "I don't want to be alone. I'm scared." She looked genuinely terrified. Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but blurt out, "I'm here for you. It'll be all right." It might have been a reckless thing to say, but I couldn't think of anything else to calm her down. After that, I just listened to her quietly. She talked about how she tried her best but still faced backlash from her crew and wondered what she could have done differently. I didn't have the answers, but I guess just talking helped her calm down. Eventually, she stopped crying altogether. "Sorry, Bob. I showed you a pathetic side of me." Just because you cried or rallied on someone doesn't mean you're weak, Catherine. So, don't make that face. When I said that, Catherine's eyes widened in surprise. I realized it was the same reaction I had once. Probably, the president must have felt this way when he comforted me back then. Given that we spoke longer than usual, it was already late. She seemed calmer, but it was getting late, so I thought I should probably drive her home. Checking the time, I realized, oh no, I missed the last train. Apparently, we get so engrossed in our conversation that the last train had left. Tomorrow's an off day from work, so after dropping her off, I thought of staying over somewhere, but then Catherine dropped a bombshell. "Why don't you come over to my place?" Even if she's 20, I thought it was a bit much to go inside her house. However, Catherine said, "If you're dropping me off, it's fine, right? You won't do anything weird, will you?" I assured her I had no ill intentions. The more I would have denied it, the guiltier I might have seemed, so I gratefully accepted her offer. She lived in a small apartment. Apparently, she used to live with her dad, but they don't get along anymore, so she lives alone now. "Thanks for having me." "Sure, come on in." And like that, I ended up in her room, which was quite unexpected in many ways. There were frilly cushions, pink curtains, and loads of cute stuffed animals. The whole room had a very lovely feel to it. "You have a cute room." "Hut, isn't everyone's room like this?" Seeing my surprised expression, Catherine too seemed taken aback. It seemed she thought her room was pretty standard. "I guess most are, but yours is on the cuter side." It wasn't meant in a bad way, but she seemed to have a reaction to the word cute and said, "Cute? I thought this was normal. Give me a break. This is my first time having someone over." Her face turned beet red with embarrassment. Seeing her like that made me wonder if maybe her regular clothes and underwear were on the cute side too, and my suspicions were confirmed. A quick glance revealed laundry with cute frilly underwear hanging out to dry. She noticed too and hastily shut the curtains. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Hey, that wasn't on purpose." With her face turning bright red, Catherine began playfully smacking me, and I had no defense. The next day, turns out, we ended up sleeping until noon. That's because, after our previous chat, Catherine suddenly wanted to watch a horse show she had come across. She was screaming out of fear, and we both were laughing and joking around. Turns out, she wanted to watch horse shows but was too scared to watch them alone. A shocking revelation. In fact, her DVR was full of unwatched horse shows she had recorded. Just one more, please. Just one more, okay. Last one, I promise. Like this, we ended up binge-watching almost 10 of the horror shows she had recorded. Even when I suggested we call it a night, Catherine was insatiable, and we continued until dawn. It's been a while since I had this much fun with someone, maybe since I left my folks' house. Waking up in the afternoon, Catherine said that with a somber tone. Feeling for her, I suggested, why not go back home for a visit? From what I heard, aside from being work-focused and often neglecting Catherine, her dad was a pretty regular guy. Catherine looked down, saying, if I go back now, he'll probably just tell me to leave. Look, I might not get the whole parent-child dilemma because I don't have parents, but maybe you should try talking to him. If he tells you to leave, then maybe it's time to really move on. But if you don't talk, you won't even give other possibilities a chance. As I was leaving, I added, you are not my family, so stop preaching me. Catherine replied with a smile as she waved goodbye. She had a look of relief on her face, and that put my mind at ease. A few days later, after work, I decided to visit the park again. However, she was nowhere to be found. But under the usual bench where she sat, there was a note, going to talk with my dad. Might not be able to come here for a while. When things settle down, I'll be back. Thanks, Bob. Honestly, it wasn't safe for a young woman to be sitting in a park at night anyway, so it was probably for the best. If she can reconcile with her family, then that's great. I thought that, but I still felt a bit lonely. A month later. That day was hectic at work. Someone made an entry error, and we received a massive amount of supplies. I was being blamed for the mistake by my boss. Yes, I placed an order a set of supplies that arrived at the same time, but the bulk shipment was not my order. Yet my boss insisted, it must have been you. You're the one who always messes up and troubles everyone around here. It's true that I caused some trouble when I first joined the company, so I couldn't blame him for suspecting me. But he was clearly jumping to conclusions. No matter how much I defended myself, no one believed me. I even started thinking, maybe I should just admit to it. The issue with the order was already confirmed to be a clerical error, right? Suddenly, I heard someone's voice. I looked up to see a beautiful woman I didn't recognize. But the voice, I knew that voice. Are you, Catherine? Hey there, Bob. Long time no see. She had dyed her hair black, but it was definitely Catherine. Why was Catherine at my office? Then it clicked. A week ago, the president had mentioned his daughter would be joining as a secretary. She was still in training and was to be introduced formally later, but I never imagined that secretary was Catherine. I think it's not right to jump to conclusions just because you're suspicious. Besides, even if Bob, he maybe made a typo, you're the one who does the final check, right? I think it's unfair to only blame Bob. Sorry about that, Bob. I jumped the gun there. When confronted by Catherine, the boss broke into a cold sweat and said, right, I had a business call to make, and hurriedly left. Thanks, Catherine. You really saved me there. No big deal. Anything for Bob. Hey, Catherine, don't just drop the formalities with your coworkers. That's when the president made an appearance. He explained the situation again, and it turned out Catherine was his daughter. My advice had apparently been the catalyst for them starting to mend their father-daughter relationship. Catherine's sudden departure had shocked him, but after she opened up about her feelings, it seems he was able to genuinely engage with her. Thank you, Bob. Thanks to you, I can spend time with my daughter again. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I haven't been much of a father to her. That's why I saw her in you." I realized what he meant. The words the president told me were meant for his daughter as well. Those words, in a roundabout way, reached Catherine through me. "Thanks, Bob. Because of you, I'm not alone anymore. How many times have I told you not to drop the formalities at work? He is also your mentor here." Chiding Catherine, the president turned to me. "Being a mentor is quite a responsibility. I'd like Catherine to take over the company someday. After she finishes her training as my assistant, I want her to work on the floor for 6 months. I'd like you to be her mentor, Bob. Can I count on you?" Me. I wondered if I was up to the task, but the president believes that teaching others is a form of learning. And since Catherine was saying things like, "I'm counting on you, Bob," I couldn't refuse. "All right then. Looking forward to working with you, Catherine." I started hanging out with Catherine like this, but since we personally got along so well, we began going out for drinks together too. Before we knew it, we were dating and eventually got married amidst the blessings of everyone. Having become her husband, I genuinely thought I should support Catherine, who was set to become the CEO. But then, Catherine dropped a bombshell saying, "Bob should become the CEO. I'm more suited to be a secretary." Suddenly, I was the candidate for the CEO, getting all the know-how drilled into me by the current president, or should I say, my father-in-law. Honestly, it's exhausting every day, but if I can repay the man who changed my life, it's a small price to pay. The president, or rather my father-in-law, always tells me with a big smile, "I'm so glad you became my son-in-law," and he guides me rigorously. Time flies, and before I realized, 5 years had passed. Even looking back, these 5 years flew by incredibly fast. I fully embraced the role of CEO, and while I've gotten used to the work now, things are still hectic. And here's why. "Hey, James, wait for me." "Nope. Playtime." James sure loves to run around. You see, shortly after we got married, Catherine became pregnant. Now we're chasing after our lively 4-year-old son. Raising a kid sure is tough. I always admired those teachers and childcare centers who could handle several kids at once. I'm struggling with just my own son. Next time, I'm racing against Daddy. "Hold on, just a moment. Come on, Daddy, you can do it." Catherine cheers me on as I'm panting hard. Over the past 5 years, Catherine has truly become a stunning woman. Her makeup has matured, and she's known as the beautiful mom at the daycare. Now, Catherine is expecting our second child. So, in her stead, I'm going all out entertaining our son. "All right, break's over. Let's race, kiddo." "Yay, all right. I'm so happy right now." My adorable son and my beloved Catherine. And our unborn child, whom I've yet to meet. For these three, I'd do anything. Once feeling so alone in the world, my family now is everything to me. I'm determined to make them the happiest they can be. That's the goal I've set for myself in life. But first, I've got to be a playmate for the little guy right in front of me. Waving to my son, I run around the park's grassy field with him.